conversation you have not had yet. You know the one. It has been sitting on the edge of your awareness for weeks, maybe for months. You have rehearsed it in your head more times than you can even count. You know that what needs to be said. You know who needs to hear it. You know that not having it is costing you, costing the team, costing the organization. And you keep not having it. Not because you lack courage, not because you don't care, because something in your body stops you every time you get close. Today, we are going inside that moment, the neuroscience of why brilliant leaders avoid the conversations that would actually change things, and what it takes to get to the other side of it. I'm Sahar Andrade. I'm a Neuroleadership coach, Forbes Coach Council member, and your host for this podcast. Welcome back to the AI Cafe Conversation, the only podcast that intersects between neuroscience, neuroleadership, AI, and actually leadership. So let's start with the crisis and what the brain is actually doing. Let me tell you about a director I worked with. 14 years in, respected, thoughtful, the kind of leaders her team would follow anywhere. She had a peer, same level. They had been working on the same initiative for 8 months. And for 8 months, her peer had been consistently dropping the ball on the handoffs between their teams. Not dramatically, not maliciously, but reliably. And the work was actually suffering for it or from it. She knew the conversation that needed to happen. She had the data, she had the examples, she had every professional reason to sit down and name what she was seeing. She had not done it. When I asked her why, she said, I just don't want to damage the relationship. And here is what was actually happening. Her brain was not calculating relationship damage. That is the story the prefrontal cortex, our logical center of the brain, tells afterward to explain a decision that was already made further down in the system. What was actually happening was this. Her amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, had run a prediction. It looked at his specific peer in this specific relationship, in this specific organizational context. And it had decided that this conversation was dangerous, not physically dangerous, but socially dangerous. Have you all gone through that or what? I know myself. I can sit with a conversation for weeks. Sometimes it's because of the energy that is going to take from me, and I don't think that I have that energy right now. So I keep waiting for the right moment. But it's also because I'm depleted, and it's also maybe because of the threat that can come with that conversation. So going back to that leader I'm talking about and her peer that has not been delivering on time, and it registered that the conversation was dangerous, not physically, but socially. The amygdala does not distinguish between a physical threat and a social one. A threat to belonging, to status, to the safety of a relationship reads to the nervous system the same way a threat to the body does. Meaning, our brain does not distinguish between if a lion is running behind us or a superior or a peer give us a bad feedback. We don't know the difference. Our brain, now we know, but our brain does not know the difference because the signal is the same. The physiological response is the same. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises, heart rate increases, and the body prepares. And in that moment of preparation, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that knows the conversation needs to happen, gets overridden because it goes offline. This is why the director kept saying next week, next week, next week. Her brain was not being weak, it was doing its job, protecting her from a predicted social threat. The prediction was not accurate, but the nervous system does not check the accuracy of the prediction before it acts. Research published in Purdue Daniel School of Business in 2026 puts a number on what is at stake from the other direction. Leaders who demonstrate vulnerability in difficult situations were found to be 60% more likely to build trust with their teams. Let me repeat that. Leaders who demonstrate vulnerability in difficult situations were found to be 60% more likely to build trust with their teams. 60%. Because they are showing their human side. Remember, human-centered leadership. The conversation the director was avoiding was not just necessary, it was the fastest path to the outcome she actually wanted. But her nervous system was not reading that research. It was reading the room, and the room felt like a threat. So what is the cost? What avoidance actually does to the team? And here is what most leadership books get wrong about difficult conversations. They treat it as a communication problem. Get the right framework, use STAR process, use SBU or SBI, use the right language, choose the right moment, follow the steps, blah, blah, blah. And those things matter. They generally do. But they address the cognitive layer of a problem that has its root in the nervous system. And when you try to execute a communication framework from inside a threat response, the framework falls apart. The leader goes into the conversation planning to be direct, measured, and specific. Then the other person reacts slightly, not even dramatically. A shift in posture, a change in tone, and suddenly the prefrontal cortex is offline and the nervous system is running the conversation. What comes out is either too soft because the system is trying to reduce the social threat, or too sharp because the frustration of months of avoidance finally breaks through. Neither lands the way it needed to. And the team pays for this in ways that are not always visible. When a leader avoids a conversation, the team reads the absence. They don't know it is a conversation being avoided. They experience it as ambiguity, as something being unresolved, as a gap where clarity should be. A 2026 study confirmed that 55% of workers say that co-workers' stress directly affects their own well-being. A leader carrying an unresolved conversation is not carrying it quietly. The nervous system leaks, tone shifts, patience shortens, presence reduces. The team feels the weight of what has not been said, even when they cannot name it. And there is a longer-term cost that I see consistently in the work I do with executive teams. Avoidance teaches the nervous system that the threat was actually real. every time a leader gets close to the conversation and backs away, the amygdala logs it. You know what happens? The prediction gets reinforced. The conversation becomes more threatening, not less. The longer it is not had. By the time it finally happens, month later, it carries all the weight of every time it was almost had and was not. And the threat that comes with it, and the pressure that comes with it, and the stress that comes with it, that actually gets accumulated without even us paying attention that this is happening inside of our brain and inside of our system. You know, that's why sometimes you see people that are usually calm, and for something that is minimal, they will just explode. And you look at them and like, what just happened? Especially that it wasn't worth that explosion, or these people are usually so calm. What happened to them? It's the buildup, it's the frustration, it's the stress. The conversation that would have taken 20 minutes in October takes 2 hours in March, and the relationship has absorbed the cost of the delay. It takes away layers from that relationship without you even feeling it, because that feeling that you had, that stress that you had, doesn't go away every night. And it will kind of imprint on the relationship that you have. So you're actually damaging relationships that could have been solved by what was done in simple conversation that becomes difficult with every single minute passing. It's like sweeping something under the rug, wishing it's going to go away on its own, and it never does. It actually festers in the dark like a cancer cell, that if we don't take care of it right away, and if we don't cut it, at the root, more damage will actually happen. So we're not helping ourselves by just waiting. So what is the solution? And what actually changes this? I want to be specific about what does not fix this. More scripts do not fix it. More communication training does not fix it. More courage does not fix it. That word is used a lot in leadership circles about difficult conversations. More courage. And by the way, courage, the word courage comes from a Latin word that is cur, C-U-R. And cur in Latin means heart. So your heart should be in it as well. So more courage is actually a word that we hear a lot, like I said, in leadership circles around difficult conversations, as if the problem is a willingness deficit. The director I mentioned had enormous courage. That is not what was stopping her. What was stopping her was a nervous system that had not yet learned to distinguish between a social discomfort and an actual physical threat. And until that distinction is clear at the physiological level, at the physical level of the body, not just the cognitive one, the scripts and frameworks sit unused and actually useless. Not only unused, but useless. What actually changes this are two things. And I want to be clear that these are starting points. They're not formulas. The deeper work happens in the room over time, not in a 15-minute podcast. The first thing is learning to recognize the threat signal before it escalates. Most leaders notice They have avoided a conversation after the moment has passed. They walked out of the meeting or got off the call and realized they had navigated around the thing again. The recognition comes too late to be useful. The work is moving that recognition earlier, not after the meeting, not even at the start of the meeting, but before. What does the anticipation of the conversation feel like in the body? Where does it land? What signals indicate the nervous system is already in threat mode before the conversation even begins? Again, I'm going to repeat these questions to differentiate between both signals. So it's about recognizing the signs earlier, not after the meeting, not even at the start of the meeting, but before. And these are the questions you ask yourself. What does the anticipation of the conversation feels like in the body? Where does it land? Does it land on your shoulders, in your belly, down your back, in your head, in your neck muscles? Where does it end? Where does it land? What signals that you know indicate the nervous system is already in threat mode before the conversation begins? Do you have a headache? Are you sweating? Are your fists done in your hands? Is your jaw clenched? Are you breathing shallow and fast? Is your heart rate going fast? Do you feel a beat in your temples? What are your muscles tensed? What is it that you're feeling that signals that you feel a threat signal? When a leader can name that signal in real time, they have created a window. Even a few seconds of recognition creates enough prefrontal engagement to make a different choice. The second thing is building regulation capacity that does not depend on the conversation going well. Most leaders who avoid difficult conversations are unconsciously waiting for conditions to be right, to be convenient, to be comfortable. They wait for the right moment. They wait for the right mood, the right level of confidence. They are outsourcing their nervous system regulation to external circumstances. And external circumstances are not a reliable regulation strategy. What I work on with every executive through my proprietary BRAIN, BRAIN framework is building internal regulation capacity. The ability to stay in a conversation when it gets uncomfortable, not because the discomfort is gone, but because the nervous system has learned it can tolerate the discomfort without triggering a threat response. That is not a mindset shift. That's not a woo-woo out there. It's a physiological neuroscience one. When the director finally had the conversation with her peer, three things were different. One, she had recognized the threat signal 2 days before the meeting and worked with it rather than pushing it down. Two, she had set the conditions for her own regulation before entering the room, not by managing the outcome in advance, but by managing her own internal state. Three, she had separated the goal of the conversation from the fear of the reaction. The conversation took 23 minutes. Her peer apologized immediately. The handoffs improved. 8 months of avoidance, 23 minutes of conversation. The relationship did not break. It actually got stronger because the trust that comes from a leader who can hold a hard conversation without the other person feeling attacked is deeper than the comfort of keeping things smooth. There is a conversation you have not had yet. The cost of not having it is real. It's costing the people around you even when they cannot name what they are feeling. It's costing your relationship and it's costing you. The question is not whether you have the courage, because you do. The question is whether your nervous system has been trained to tolerate the discomfort of what honesty requires. If you want to find out where you actually stand, that is exactly what a leadership clarity call is for. 30 minutes, not a pitch, just clarity on what is actually going on and what you would need to change. The link, I'm going to leave it in the notes of this episode. I will see you Friday for our Forbes article-like edition, where we take this week's neuroscience and turn it into something you can bring into your next conversation this week. Until then, regulate first. Everything else follows. And like I always say, show me some love. Subscribe to the podcast, share it, comment, rate it. All this helps us. Thank you for making us one of the top global 2% podcasts out of millions. I really appreciate your support. Please continue supporting us. Till I see you on Friday. Peace out.